Zoop's jerky when you cut the range.
Gotta.
Yeah, I think so.
I told him he's introducing actors.
I'm the clerk.
There you go.
I almost wanted to say.
Frank's not here.
I didn't see this call.
Kevin, yeah, and then the attorneys on the end. Okay, we're good. They can share. Caring is sharing.
All right, folks, we're going to first stand for a moment of silence for those innocent victims of violence here and abroad, and then we'll follow that up with the Pledge of Allegiance. So first we'll start with the moment of silence.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Chapman, can we get roll call, please?
Commissioner Jewell, Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner McDonald.
Here.
Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Yugovich.
Present.
And Chair Commissioner Boyle.
Here. Thank you much, and thank you, Commissioner McDonald, for having us up this neck of the woods. I think it's been about 5-6 years since we were last here. Always like coming up to this area. So first I'd like to welcome Mayor Zuplich to, did I say that right?
Zaponcich.
Zaponcich. Zups. That's right. Like, Zups is always what I call it. I got the jerky to prove it, but Mayor, thanks for coming and hosting us.
I would like to thank the commissioners and the public to come to our meeting here in Babbitt. Welcome to Babbitt. We're always excited to see people from here, especially this many people. I left a brochure out there for you guys, just to kind of give you a sampling of what we have. We were just talking about how we have 3 disc golf courses now, which is starting to become very popular. We have pickleball.
They're playing it back there right now, I saw.
Yeah, we've got a really good group that comes all the time. A couple groups, actually. And so Babbitt is a small town. We love it. We're proud of it. You know, we've got a lot of hurdles to overcome, but some things that we're working on that I want to let you guys be aware of is we've got a campground that we're working on over there on Birch Lake, and it's going to be RV tent sites, and so hammering and shaking all the bushes for any funding we can. Our Birch Lake landing, public landing, is phenomenal. That was built over, I think, in 2016 or redone, and it's incredible, especially when we have the walleye whamma and all those boats come out to the Birch Lake and come into town. So we just have a couple of commercial lots for sale still, and like every other town around here, we're trying to do what we can to fill up the empty spaces at the shopping center and get businesses and people into our town, not only to help the schools, but the communities as well. So I'd like to welcome you guys and thank you for coming here. And that's about it. I don't know if you guys have any questions. I'm open for questions if you want to ask anything or anyone.
No, it's I always really like how this is literally a one-stop shop for all you need in town here of a good reuse of an old elementary school building.
Yeah. We used to have 3 schools here. Now, we have one K through 12, and it was 1 high school, 2 elementaries at one time. And we've kind of reused this one for the city offices, the public library, the police station. We've got medical. We used to have a dental office here. Looking for one, if you know of anyone. We've got the workout center, senior center. We've got a lot of good stuff here. Public gym. So trying to do the best we can with what we got, like everyone else.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Next, we have something special. We're going to have the swearing of our mine inspector, Derek Haven, and we're going to have Joel just kind of narrate it for us. Joel.
Mr. Chair, before we start, I want to issue a formal complaint that my mine inspector, my new mine inspector, is wearing a tie. Just want to formally complain about that.
Chair, Commissioners, my name is Joe Austin. I'm the Safety and Risk Management Director. As you are well aware, the St. Louis County Mine Inspector is a historical and important position as the county has had a mine inspection office and mine inspector in place since 1905. This office serves to not only assist area mines and miners in preventing workplace accidents and injuries, but to also protect the public from hazards associated with historical mine workings. St. Louis County has been providing these services per statute without pause for in excess of 113 years. On March 12, 2019, the county board unanimously approved the appointment of Mr. Derek Harbin as the next county mine inspector. As you recall, Mr. Harbin has direct experience in mining as a miner, a mine manager, a mine safety professional, and for the last 2 years as an assistant St. Louis County mine inspector. He is highly qualified for this job, obviously. Today, we have the honor of seeing Mr. Harbin sworn in as the next St. Louis County mine inspector so that we can continue to provide this important service. I don't think I'm qualified for signing people.
I, Derek Harbin,
I, Derek Harbin,
do solemnly swear that I will support
do solemnly swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully execute and discharge
and I will faithfully execute and discharge
the duties of the office of mine inspector
the duty of the office of mine inspector,
in St. Louis County, Minnesota,
St. Louis County, Minnesota,
according to the law and to the best of my ability and understanding.
according to the law and the best of my ability and understanding.
Congratulations, Derek.
Thank you.
When you're wearing a tie, the numbers don't lie.
Not on the mine side.
Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I had the opportunity of meeting with our new mine inspector the other day formally, and it's exciting to see a new thought process and new ideas coming into that office, and I'm excited about it. But I will tell you that over the years that I've served on this board, this mine inspector position has been talked about an awful lot. It started out in the sheriff's department. It ended up in public works, and sometime about 10 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago, we put it under our employee safety and development. And the truth is that under Director Austin, this position has elevated itself to a much more prominent position amongst all of the safety committees because that work at the various mines, because they recognize the expertise that Joe brings to the table. And now with Derek coming in, I mean, we continue the good work that Steve had done in that office. But this office, there are still people out there that say, why do we need a mine inspector? And I want to make sure that everybody clearly understands one thing. The federal folks show up twice a year at the mines. That's just what they do. They show up, they write out enough fines to support their office, and they leave. Our county mine inspectors are literally in the mines on a daily basis. They're in one or another. And our county mine inspectors, if you read that report that is sent to us annually, okay, and you look at the accomplishments of our county mine inspectors, the fact is our miners they come home at night. And they come home at night because county mine inspectors are there, because the corporations are taking it much more seriously today because of our mine inspectors. And it's not because we're punishing them. We're out there working hand in hand with the unions, with the companies, and our mine inspectors, and it shows. So for all of you that continue to support the mine inspector program, thank you. For those of you that don't, I'd love an opportunity to take you out to the mine and show you what they all do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Well stated. Commissioners, next up we have the employee and retiree longevity recognition. Why don't we start going down the list? We'll start with retirees. Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a number of retirees, and And thank you, Commissioner Yugovich, for switching with me because I truly wanted to do one of these retirees. And I'm sorry I play a little bit of favorites, folks, but I just do, okay? Some people that I've worked with a long time, but Julie Bartek is the first out of Public Health and Human Services. The one that I wanted to switch for is Paul Kent out of Public Works. Used to be 911.
You get that.
Okay.
You promenaded in front of the. Come on up. I'll hang with you.
John Lamali? Yes, sir. Come on up, please. Out of Environmental Services. Steve Manninen. Steve was our former mine inspector. I note that he's not here today, but Steve, yeoman's work is what Steve did for 3 years as our mine inspector. Miko Perhala. Come on, help me out, somebody. I should have that Finnish name down, but Kathy Plusha, Jeffrey Polcher, Alan Prigge.
Wow, you're amazing.
Jesse Shunk. Shows that they're here. And Clarice Seaver. And Mr. Chair, that concludes the retiree recognition.
Just move right into the. We're going to do it all together.
Let's do the retiree picture.
Okay.
And we'll do the longevity, folks. But if that's okay, we'd like to get a picture with the commissioners. And Julie is just at the job change. She's now a photographer.
I never forget.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, retirees. I'm sorry, but now I noticed.
All right, Commissioners, now we'll go into years of service, 25 years under Commissioner Jugovich.
Thank you, Chair Boyle. We have three that have 25 years of service. The first is Nancy Forsstrom from Public Health and Human Services. Come on up. Congratulations. The second is Diane Hildreth from Environmental Services. How are you doing? Good to see you. And Gregory Jacobson from Public Works. Congratulations.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to note that these two ladies started when they were 9.
We'll go to 30 years, Commissioner McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First up, we have Michelle Kynes from Public Health and Human Services. Congratulations. Richard Kalish from Public Works. And Donna O'Connor from Environmental Services. Thank you.
Finally, 40 years of service, Commissioner Olson.
With 40 years of service, we have Victor Kalinin in Land and Minerals, Elaine Lee, attorney, and Patrick Osabin for Public Works.
Excellent.
Thank you. Mark 7. Okay. Okay.
I honestly missed the short guy.
Take a pass your day to get your
I wonder why you always migrate to this side. You could have done this other knee.
Nice. Thank you.
Watch out, I got one behind you. We got one more. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
So what, I missed jerky or what? He might have something, you never know. McDonald's got like a bag of goodies. Does he really? He's like Santa Claus. Jeez. Really?
He went the Zups, what can I say, okay?
Yep.
You said that.
Oh, that's perfect.
Oh, is this it?
Had to hand me.
Hard at it.
That was a fresh. This is small.
Thanks again, Paul. Have a good day.
All right. Yeah, I would say definitely.
School's narrowed down.
This was the younger. My the older daughter's on a field trip to New York City with her mom. Right, well, with her band and choir.
Peggy and I got a bet.
Just banged down flew into Fort Lauderdale, drove across to Fort Myers because we didn't get our planning yet. All right.
But yeah, they.
But then came back to Fort Lauderdale via the Everglades, and it was great. We went on on a boat ride. And see, it's just incredible seeing the alligators. They had a really nice mini zoo there that had everything from cougars to even lions and tigers.
Mini
But
zoo is that spring break.
yeah, it was less.
No more rebellions.
Less crazy. We were on Hollywood Beach in Fort Lauderdale, so actually I guess Hollywood is like a suburb of Fort Lauderdale, or so.
All right, Commissioners, we'll move in at this time for citizens to be allowed to address the board on items not on the agenda. They'll have up to 5 minutes to speak on each item. First up, we have Sally Lemmy. Oh, Sally had to leave? Well, she did, Commissioner, she did send us this letter here that she would encourage County Road 715 on the north side of Babbitt to be named in honor of Tom Rukavina. And it goes into the history that he, in the state legislature, got $2 million set aside to be in work on the right-of-way. I know the 4 years I worked with him, he was always up on this project. So this is something we could look at in the future, Commissioners. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, and I know we don't normally talk about these that much at these beginning of the meeting, but this road is now a dead-end road because of mining operations, but we are working on a plan to get some construction done in conjunction with the city of Babbitt. And I know Commissioner McDonald is getting brought up to speed on that very quickly, but this is formerly, and the $2 million, by the way, was set aside at the Iron Resources and Rehabilitation Board. And that's where the money was set aside. And that money is still set aside to complete that road or to complete something, some kind of a project that would be a component part, that road would be a component part of. So I think as we get to the future on this, it's certainly something I would be willing to consider. Again, legislator, former representative Rukavina was the one that set aside the $2 million at the IRRR, just to give this board a little bit of a history on how that came about.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner. Next up, we have Quint Lauer. Quint, please come on up and introduce yourself and your address, please.
I sure will. Quint Lauer, L-A-U-E-R, 3575 Norway Lane, Ely. It's just north of Ely, 6 miles on Everett Lake. I'd like you guys to re-examine this. 2014, St. Louis County did a wonderful job of putting this brochure together on short-term property rental issues. I live on a lake up there, and it's a small 140-acre lake, and there are 2 rental properties on it. And $20,000, $30,000 a year. These people are making an income. It's not a residential neighborhood anymore. It's a commercial property. They don't use it as a vacation property. It's a commercial property. Last year I did talk to Commissioner Nelson, and he's way up on the septic issues of this. There's lodging tax issues that people are missing out on. There's all sorts of tax issues. There's issues with what's affecting the neighborhoods up there, what's affecting the people around the lake. So I just know it's been 2014. I just don't want it to be a dead issue, guys, really. There's a lot of us out there that have been living on lakes for a long time, and it's something that really needs to be addressed. So if it can't be addressed, please look at just putting a total block on short-term property rentals. In fact, California, Monterey, Santa Monica, New Orleans, the French Quarter, New York City has done it, Key Biscayne, and Miami Beach, total put a block on these rental properties. So if you don't come to some sort of issues on this, please look at blocking all the short-term rentals. That's all I have to say. Just don't let it, don't let it just do something, please, on this issue. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Lawler, I can tell you that our planning commission is going to be working on this shortly regarding this issue. So
it's still alive.
It's coming quickly. Yeah.
Great. Hey,
yep.
That's all I had. Nervous, but thanks.
No. No. Thank you. Thank you for your response. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner.
Mr. It would be more appropriate for you in the month of April and May. I believe in May this will hit the Planning Commission. That would be the place to testify in front of, and I will make. The Planning Commission meetings are held in Virginia, but I will make certain that we notify you of it. Okay.
Super.
Thank you.
And thanks again for last year.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on issues not on the agenda? Seeing none, all other items that are on the agenda or committee of the whole, citizens will be allowed to address the board at that time. Motions on the floor. Commissioners, we have the consent agenda in front of us.
Second.
Moved by Olson, second by Jugovich. Anything need to be pulled? Seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. We have no items on the regular agenda this week, Commissioners. So I'm looking for to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by McDonald, second by Jugovich. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Take 5 minutes and we'll move into the committee of the whole.
Yugovich's district, which is not.
But I'll take it.
I'm sure you would. They're good people, but I'm not intending to give it up anytime soon.
All right. I'll get that fixed. Do I have a second on the consent agenda? Second by Commissioner Olson.
And Mr. Chair, the map has been fixed on the website.
Okay.
But our printed copies are incorrect. Okay. That's why I'm pointing it out, Commissioners.
Okay. All right, Commissioners, anything else to pull? So we're going to be pulling item number 10 and 11. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Consent passes. We'll move on to the regular agenda. Public Works, Commissioner Jugovich.
Thank you, Chair Boyle. We've got a number of items today, so we'll get right to it. Under Public Works and Transportation, number one is the acceptance of a grant for bridge replacement, and that everyone knows that's really important. We want to keep up on these things. It's resolution, it's letter 19-136. It's a resolution authorizing an agreement with the Minnesota State Transportation and General Funds Bridge Bond to commit to St. Louis County state aid funds for costs of a project on SAP 069-644-027. I would move, sir.
Support.
Support by Commissioner Boyle.
Well, thank you, Chair Jugovich. Commissioners, as was noted by the chair, the action before the board is to authorize an agreement accepting Minnesota MnDOT grant funds for to pay for bridge replacement. So I would I'll turn this over to Director Faldesy in a second, but once again, this is, in short, an example of St. Louis County having shelf-ready and a great relationship with MnDOT at their Central Bridge office to take advantage of some available funds that, quite frankly, other counties and municipalities weren't prepared to do. So this is going to offset our construction costs, and essentially is just being ready and connected with MnDOT. So kudos to Jim and his team. But I think he can tell you a little bit more about the project and how we came to take advantage of this $330,000.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner Jugovich, and Commissioners, and thank you, Administrator Gray, for the introduction. Yeah, this project was on the books. We had it prepared and ready to go. We have a great relationship with MnDOT's Central Bridge Office and also with the administrator of the bridge bonding funds. Her name is Patty Loken. She works out of MnDOT State Aid Central Office, and she's aware that we have a lot of bridges and a lot of bridges that need reconstructing. And so in this case, this was really what we call the scrapings, the bottom of the barrel of the last bridge bonding round that the legislature passed. And she saw an opportunity to basically plug those funds into this project. So kind of at the last minute, these funds came into us after she contacted us and recognized this as a potential place for the funds. So it's nice to have that relationship to be able to take advantage of when the funds are available. So again, that's $330,000 worth of our state aid funds that now we can put on another project somewhere else in St. Louis County. So we're always ready to take advantage of those things. One of the other things to be said about this project, it's on Highway 44 in UT 5413, just north of North Star Township, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, no good detours. So this project will actually have a temporary bridge, temporary bypass out there to keep traffic going. Otherwise, the detour was probably going to be about 40 miles around on this one. So as part of our project staging, we make sure that we can keep the traffic going reasonably there.
Any questions or comments for Director Faldesy? Okay. That being said, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have a state contract purchase of 6 dump bodies with hydraulic systems and snow removal equipment, letter 19-137. As you know, we recently picked up or purchased some equipment, some trucks, and now we are outfitting to make sure that they serve the public the best they can. And I tell you what, with all the improvements, the things we're doing, with all the equipment they put on these trucks, we really do get the bang for the buck. They do so many different things. So this is just taking the trucks and outfitting them and having them ready for service as soon as we can get everything up and running. I would move.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McDonald.
Chair Jugovich, the only thing I would add, and I think maybe Director Faldesy can expand on your comments, as you and I have discussed, and the goal of Public Works has been to provide for more versatility for our trucks, including some unique arenas that, whether it's equipment movement or other uses. And Jim, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about that, I'd appreciate it. And again, this does complement as our kind of two-step process, as the chair was noting. We purchased the trucks, and then we purchased the dump body and all the hydraulics and all the plows separately, and then there's another unique feature here too. So with your permission, I'd turn it over to Director Faldesy.
Please.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner Jugovich, and Commissioners. Yes, so this is, the typical outfitting of the trucks, of the chassis that have already been purchased. In this case, we chose these trucks to be hook trucks again. So these are the trucks that we've talked about with the board at other workshops, where essentially they're able to take many different types of units onto them. They're not a fixed body or a fixed dump body, really what you'd think of as the typical dump truck. These have a hook on them so that essentially we can components off and on these chassis pretty much at a moment's notice. So in this case, we're outfitted in total for plowing and plowing activities and carrying salt, sand, or hauling other materials. But in addition to that, we're purchasing 2 flatbed attachments for each of these trucks, each of these 6 trucks in this package, in this $961,000. So essentially, we'll be able to either haul equipment on those flatbeds on our trucks, or we can also put on other attachments. For instance, we would be able to put on our anti-icing application equipment onto one of these flatbeds. So putting on a tank and a distributor bar to go out and do anti-icing prior to storms. We'll be able to potentially put on turf establishment equipment, so hydro seeding, those types of things. There's kind of an endless limit or endless amount of potential attachments that you can outfit these flatbeds with. And so it's a continuation. We've already got a set of these trucks out there. We've been testing them. We really like what we see. We're getting a lot more use out of these trucks year-round, and we're going to continue down this path.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Yugovich. Jim, do we still pay sales tax?
In the case of the outfitting of the trucks, sales tax is not on these, but on the chassis we pay the sales tax.
So there is no sales tax on the outfitting of it?
Correct.
And I think we should buy radiator caps, pay the sales tax, and then outfit those radiator caps with the balance of the unit. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, that might be stretching it a little bit far. The intent of the law, maybe.
Chair Jugovich, I would just note that we continue to try to get more utility and versatility out of our equipment, about our abilities to maximize our people power as well as the equipment. So we're seeing more and more of these trucks now that will have not necessarily towing something, but just this modularity. So it's like modules. You can, used to be we'd take the plow off, and that was kind of the one module or piece that was flexible. Now we can take the whole dump body off, put a flatbed on, and use it 10 other different ways. So it also causes some challenges in our garages and things like that, and opportunities. But it's really incredible the work that Director Faldese's team is putting into maximizing our flexibility, and with the direction and urging and support of this board to do more things from brine solutions, the pre-wetting and chemicals, to hydro seeding, to all points in between, and without having to have trailer units now, potentially have the flexibility to transport something on a truck proper. So we're really pleased, and this long-term helps us get a more efficient fleet too, and manage our costs that way. So we think there'll be some financial side benefits too, in addition to the work efficiency.
Yep. Mr. Chair, if I could add to that, we definitely see a potential for downsizing our fleet as part of this strategy. That, again, as Administrator Gray alluded to, literally we can get rid of a lot of trailers that we have. We can potentially get rid of other vehicles that we have out there that were kind of single use or one-time use or special purpose, I guess is probably the best way to say it. This opens up a lot of opportunity potentially to make our fleet a lot more efficient. We're not maintaining as many vehicles. There's a lot of cost pluses in this strategy from what we can see at this point.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Mr. Chair, before we get too far beyond that one, I should make this comment. Look, the hydro seeding has always been a kind of a dream for me to see us shift to that. But one of the reasons is because of the amount of, I mean, we all talk about weed control, and I was at the DAT meeting the other night, Duluth Area Townships, in Commissioner Stauber's absence, or his moving on. I was there, and one of the things that, that they're talking about is investments in weed control. And when we are out doing standard seeding, the issue is you standard seed and you have to mulch hay. And when we drag in mulch hay from all over the place, this year especially, you're not going to find mulch hay any place because there's such a hay shortage. So we end up dragging in weeds from other areas or poor quality hay from other areas to do the mulching, which is required unless we hydroseed. Sounds like a little thing, but when you look at the amount of territory that St. Louis County covers, just as an example within the Superior National Forest, it becomes a very big thing in the sense that we don't need to introduce foreign plant species, weeds, purple loosestrife, there's a number of them, but whenever you start introducing that stuff, it becomes very expensive to get rid of it. So this new style it's not a new style of seeding, but this more advanced style of seeding will eliminate that possibility. And I think it sounds like a little thing, but it's really not a little thing. It's actually a very big thing in terms of future potential costs related to the control. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Again, I've been waiting for that for a long time, but we haven't had the ability to do it.
I appreciate that. I know that weed control's been a hot topic at the Capitol recently, too. So, nobody got that. All right.
I did. Different kind of weed.
Oh, okay. All right.
That was actually as good as my radiator cap one, though, Mr. Chair.
Noxious.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on. 3 is the award of bids for bituminous surfacing and culvert replacement projects, Grand Lake Township. It's to the low bidder of Northland Constructors of Duluth, and I would be more than happy to move that.
Support.
Second by Commissioner Nelson.
Just send right over to
Director Faldesi, would you be so kind?
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner Jugovich, and Commissioners. Our engineer's estimate for this project was $762,616 roughly. Our low bidder, Northland Constructors of Duluth Incorporated, at $803,671, about $41,000 or 5.5% roughly over the engineer's estimate. We reviewed that, and bids are acceptable. We had 3 bidders on this project. The project itself is a package of roads in the Grand Lake Township area. All of them are pretty poor condition as far as pavement-wise. So we're doing reclaim and overlays and replacing culverts on these. These are all funded with St. Louis County Transportation Sales Tax funds. So Public Works recommends awarding the bids.
Commissioner Nelson?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Udovich. Jim, was this bid in conjunction with the state, with the MnDOT bid on the balance of the J-turn, or are they bidding both of these separately?
Chair, Commissioner Jugovich, and Commissioners. Commissioner Nelson, this is bid separately because the other project is using federal funds for the J-turn, and you never want to mix federal funds with other types of funds because then you federalize all of the projects. You have to go through all of the hoops for all of those other projects if you were to let it as a package.
Mr. Chair, if I might continue that question, did Northland also get the federal funded project? Is there some economy of scale here, I guess is my question.
Chair, Commissioner Jugovich, and Commissioners, we have not let the J-turn project as of yet. That is in MnDOT's hands for review. It has been for quite some time. So.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to an award of bids. It's 6 reclaim and overlay projects and a rock excavation ditching project in northern St. Louis County, White Township, a little south of Aurora. We've got the low bidder was Hewlin Brothers of Cloquet, and I would move.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McDonald. Would you like to, since you're here, Mr. Faldesi, I mean, I don't want to shortchange you.
Mr. Chair, before he chimes in, I would just like to say that this project came in under, so I'll frame that piece of it. Then you can have the rest. I'm done.
You want that piece.
Under budget.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner Jugovich, and Commissioners. Yes, we were really happy with these bids. They came in, as Commissioner Jugovich noted, Yulin Brothers was the low bidder. Our engineer's estimate was right around $4.5 million. The project came in at $3.825 million, about $690,000 under estimate, about 15% under the estimate. This is I think we received great bids because we put together an extensive package geographically located in the White Township area. Essentially, this is going to upgrade that whole neighborhood up there. By the time we leave, every road in that area, every bridge from last year that we reconstructed will be, the infrastructure up there will be in great shape everywhere south of Aurora and in Aurora, actually, as well. So really happy that's been a long time coming. People have been looking forward to these projects out there. The roads were in pretty rough shape, and so we're really happy to deliver this one. There is also a federal project on Highway 100 separate from this package. Again, let separately because of the federal funds, but that'll get done as well. So yeah, literally everything up there. We're also doing a project on White Township, one of White Township's roads as well, that was used for the detour last year for the bridge project. So upgrading that as well in partnership with White. So that's that project. We're also doing a smaller rock excavation project on the Echo Trail. That's the second project. Engineer's estimate for that was a little over $75,000, came in at $55,000 roughly. Hoover Construction was the low bidder, about $20,000 under the engineer's estimate, so we're really happy with that. Hoover's one of the rock experts out there. So we're glad we got them on this project and are happy with the bids. So with that, yes, we would recommend award of these packages.
Okay, comments, questions? We'll do the first one first, obviously. Commissioner McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you've ever driven these roads out in White Township, I would concur with Director Faldesy with they are in dire need of help. And this is one thing that I had heard extensively during the campaign and right after the election, and they were very pleased that these roads are on the list, and combined with the federal project, this area will definitely see a much-needed upgrade.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then the last thing is rock excavation ditching project, unorganized township, 6412. It's a resolution awarding excavation ditching to Hoover Construction of Virginia, and I would move that.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McDonald.
Jim's already talked to us.
Yeah. So,
Mr. Chair, I don't often have to do this, but I always try and mention these things whenever I think there's a perceived conflict, okay? But I have no financial involvement whatsoever, but I will tell you that the project manager on this project and one of the people that does these things at Hoover is my daughter-in-law. So if anybody sees a conflict there, I will recluse myself. But again, we see Hoover about once or twice a year in St. Louis County, and I usually mention it every time we see it because she's not just a worker, she runs the project, so that's why I mention it.
all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Back
And I
to
might
you,
add,
Chair.
Jim has to be nice to her, Chair.
Oh, I think he's nice to everybody.
Okay.
Commissioners, next we have Environment and Natural Resources, Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner Boyle. I did pull these two down, and I have to tell you that for some time I've been watching these very, very closely, those that happen within the district that I represent, and I can't help but notice very similar types of issues on these two repurchases, and I really want to learn some more about it. So I'm going to ask that we move both of these without recommendation, But if you look, the one repurchase, the first one, and I'll kind of lump these together so we can do it in one shot, but the first one is to a LLC in Brooklyn, New York. And if you look at the building, you know, it's obviously not in my commissioner district, but I look at these buildings and I ask myself, would I want to live next door to them? And as we allow these repurchases to take place, we have some ownership as a county. And if you look at the second one, I mean, it's a great example. It's about 5 acres. But I mean, look at the picture. And I actually had a friend of mine down in Duluth drive by this one because I wanted to know a little bit more about it because it's 5 acres. But it borders a landfill, really. Okay, you know, there's the garage door is broken in. There's garbage laying all around the buildings. There's stuff every place. And you kind of ask, is it in good conscience that we're back out there selling this back to the party that is going to be a blight issue for the balance of the neighborhood? And that's one of the things that we've just recently gotten about 7 or 8 different houses and apartment buildings down in the city of Virginia that were blight issues ever since I've been on the county board, and we're finally getting some of this stuff down. And so, while I support reselling these to these individuals, I really think we need to put some ownership into this and talk about the fact that if we're going to allow this repurchase, then there has to be some measure of responsibility that goes along with it. And that measure of responsibility, and I don't know if we have that ability. So I mean, that's why I'm asking for this additional week. But if these properties are currently tax forfeit, I know we have the ability to clean up tax forfeit property, okay? So like this one out in Commissioner Yugovich's area, you know, let's clean it up before we sell it back to them if we have to. Or do something of that measure. The one that's down in I believe in Commissioner Wilson's district? Okay. So, I mean, you look at the shape of the property and you read his explanation, well, I want to retain ownership so that I can pass it on to my sons. Okay? Well, that's great. I support. I mean, people have purchased these things. They should be able to pass them on to their other family members. But in what condition? And is it going to continue to be a blight issue in that community? And so I'm wanting, one, for administration to know a whole lot more about these repurchases in the future, where we literally do an assessment and talk about, you know, how that building or that, especially non-homestead, obviously non-homestead, okay? But how are those properties affecting the neighboring properties? And in both of these cases, just at first blush, I believe these properties are affecting the neighboring properties. And I don't think that we as a board should promote that. I really don't. So I'll move the first one without recommendation if there's support.
Support.
Moved and supported. Administrator Gray, I laid out all of my concerns and you can take it from there, I guess.
Chair Nelson, the action before the board is to approve an application for repurchase of tax forfeited lands with full payment of back taxes owed. There is a decision tree. We've had this discussion with the board, and I think it's an excellent point, at least on first blush, as you look at these properties. For some further follow-up, I'll work with Land Commissioner Weber and Deputy Administrator Fritzinger, but I think around, particularly, again, you pointed out non-homestead properties, we have some ability to say, well, is this in the best interests of the county, of the local neighborhood? And I think it's worthwhile looking at that. So I'm pleased that you mentioned this, and we will follow up and bring some feedback to both commissioners of the districts where these properties are, as well to the chair of Natural Resources, and have some facts and maybe more dialogue on this. There's oftentimes other pieces of the puzzle, and also some unique circumstances that people can be in as well that we try to balance, and I will point that out too. But on the surface, it sure makes sense to revisit this, and we have, as this board is aware and has supported, not approved some repurchase requests in the past already. And we don't make a habit of that, but on an exception basis, there's some criteria that we can refer to and provide more input to the board, and we'll do that.
Thank you, Administrator Gray. Questions, concerns from other commissioners? One of the things, Administrator Gray, I would like this question answered. Do we have the ability to conditionally resell these properties, where we could stipulate and put, you know, some conditions on that, and thank you, Attorney Rubin, if you'll look into that, because in my opinion, as the zoning authority, the city, in one of these cases, you know, should be standing up here saying, hey, wait a second, you shouldn't sell that back to them, okay? You know, this is a blight issue in our neighborhood, or we should have the township in one of the cases. But I think if we could sell it back conditionally, where not only are they paying the back taxes, but they also have a plan to meet the zoning ordinance, the blight issues, and those sorts of things. Commissioner Boyle.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, at least on the Duluth side of this one property, you know, my assumption is, and I can't read if it is happening here or not, but my assumption is this is a rental. And we do have the City of Duluth's fire inspector that would have to go through that. You know, I see the railings look pretty up to date, but structure-wise, yeah, it does look rough. But I know that that should happen, and you know, that's a good question. Is these go tax forfeit, and this property's been forfeit for a while. He owes about $25,000 in back taxes.
Correct.
That you know, if there's some dialogue between the City of Duluth and the fire inspector, that would be important. You know, we have a lot of rentals in Duluth, as we do in Virginia. You know, it'd be good to have that dialogue on these when they come up. If there's any way we have leeway to help out those properties, it's important.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Boyle. I will tell you, when we started getting both Evelyn and Virginia to look at these each and every time, we started, I think our evaluation process has gotten so much better, and consequently, we just took down a 4-unit apartment that, quite frankly, has been abandoned for the last 15, 16 years, and finally got it down because they came back for a repurchase. We said no, and it's gone, and it was Pigeon Central in the city of Virginia. It was time for it to go.
I mean, a good example of what we've done in the past, the City of Duluth, is the Cozy Apartment Complex, which was significantly larger than this, but the city did the due diligence on that one, and I think they should do it on the smaller properties too on this.
Administrator Gray.
Excellent points, and I believe some of this dialogue has been held, and we continue to work on our review of these repurchases, with trying to balance the sensitivity to the property owner along with the condition of the property. I would note that one of the action items that the board took recently in the last couple of years was to not offer a 10-year standard extension, but up to 4 years for non-homestead properties. In part, that while 4 years is still a long time for most of us, I would agree, but that 10 years horizon was a long time if you've got something that's not being addressed. So a modest part of that is that you'll note that this is a 4-year, if they don't pay in full, they have only up to 4 years. And then, of course, it becomes back as something that we would manage at that point. But again, good discussion, And we'll follow up on this and the following item, Resolution 134 as well.
And thank you, Administrator Gray. I would only point out on the 4-year repurchase, it's 3 years to tax forfeit, 1 year of grace, 4 years to repurchase, and in Evelyn, that adds up to 8 years of blight. Okay? At least where I went to school, that's 8 years of blight. And that's where I hope we can engage, as you stated, Commissioner Boyle, the city of Duluth, and have some of that conversation. Or if we can, through our legal department, if we can somehow put some conditions on this stuff that makes it part of the contract as well. So with that said, all those in favor of the first repurchase for Augustus Sun LLC, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This is without recommendation. Second one is certainly not nearly as egregious in terms of taxes, but the property is in interesting shape. I would move it. Is there support? Without recommendation. Supported by Commissioner Yugovich. I think we've pretty well covered this. I'm not going to be turning to Administrator Gray, if that's all right. Commissioners have any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Chair Commissioner Boyle, that is all I have under the Environment and Natural Resources Committee for today.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Next up, we have Commissioner discussion items and reports. Any items or reports? Commissioner Nelson.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to point out one thing, and Andrea and a couple of our counselors are in the back of the room. Just so this board is aware, and I know I've made the commissioner from the district aware, myself and actually former Commissioner Fink have been up working with the city of Babbitt, trying to help them through the process to gain some of the funding for the Birch Lake Campground, which is a great project that would put, and this board might remember, we used some aquatic invasive species money to help them on that boat landing area, and the city continues to try and develop that area because obviously it brings a number of people into this area, and so we're working with them to hopefully get them on the list for some of the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails money, and any opportunity that I have to help them out on that project, I think is pretty exciting. It's a pretty exciting project. So I'll stop with that, Mr. Watt.
Any other commissioners? See none. Commissioner McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I'd just like to thank the city of Babbitt and Mayor Zaponcich, Councilors Anderson and Lassie for hosting this event. It's always nice to get people out into our backyard up here in far northeastern Minnesota, and very well done, I must say. I know a lot of positive comments from the people we were honoring today from St. Louis County. So thank you very much, and keep up your good work.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Commissioner McDonald, I should have said that in the beginning of the meeting, let you introduce. I apologize.
Not a problem.
Do that from now on.
I'm a finisher.
I would.
Kind of like Duke. Kind of like Duke.
I already had the referees on their side.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
I would point out, Mr. Chair, though, that Babbitt is the front yard, Ely's the backyard.
Yes, very well. Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, move to adjourn.
So moved.
Support. Support by Commissioner Olson. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.